What's the most devastating way you discovered you were the backup plan all along? Story 1. We were together for nearly 6 years, bought a house, shared pets, talked marriage. I genuinely thought we were just saving up before getting engaged. One night, I walked in on him in the guest room on his laptop. He didn't hear me come in, and I glanced over his shoulder. He was on Facebook Messenger, talking to a woman named Emily. I froze when I saw my name pop up in the chat. He said, "I'm still with her, because the timing hasn't been right for us. But you know you're the one. Always have been." I didn't say a word. Just turned around and walked out. He never saw me read it. I waited until he left for work the next morning, packed a bag and left. A few days later, I sent him a screenshot of the conversation. He tried calling me dozens of times, said she was just an old friend and that he was just venting. But the way he said she was the one stuck with me. I was the placeholder, the warm-up act, the loyal, reliable backup plan until he was ready to chase what he really wanted. That broke me. Story 2. I dated this guy Mark for 2 years. We were long distance for most of it, but we talked every day. Every plan for the future involved both of us moving to the same city. I even turned down a job offer because he said he was moving to me. He didn't. Instead, he ghosted me for a few days, unlike him, and then finally called to tell me he was confused and needed space. 2 weeks later, he posted engagement photos on Instagram with a girl I'd never seen. Turns out he had been dating us both. She lived in his hometown. I was the just-in-case long-distance relationship in case things didn't pan out. She had no idea about me either. So I messaged her, sent proof, screenshots. She blocked me and married him anyway. To this day, I wonder if she knows she was the plan A, and I was just a lifeline he kept in his back pocket. Story 3. When I was 24, I proposed to my girlfriend. She said yes, but she hesitated first. That hesitation was the first sign. 6 months into the engagement, I found a journal on her nightstand. I didn't mean to read it. I really didn't. But something about the way she had been distant made me feel like I was losing her already. What I read still haunts me. She wrote, "I still think about Ryan. He's everything I ever wanted, but I waited too long. He moved on. Now I'm marrying Josh because he's safe. Maybe that's enough." Josh. That's me. I was her settle for. I never confronted her. Just ended the engagement and told her I wasn't ready. I let her keep her pride. But I've never unlearned that feeling, that I wasn't someone's dream. Just their security blanket. Story 4. We were high school sweethearts. Everyone thought we'd get married. I thought so too. Then we took a break when we went to college. Stayed friends. Dated other people. But always kept in touch. After college, we got back together. It felt perfect again. Like destiny. Fast forward a year. We're at a wedding together. And one of her old college friends is drunk and chatty. She turns to me and says, "It's crazy you two ended up together." I remember how crushed she was when Evan ghosted her. "You were like the rebound that stuck?" I laughed awkwardly, but something inside me died a little. Later that night, I asked her about it. She admitted it. Evan had broken her heart, and she got back in touch with me because it felt familiar and comforting. Familiar and comforting. That was all I was. I walked out the next day and never looked back. Story 5. After dating for over a year, she invited me to her family's Thanksgiving dinner. Big step, right? I was nervous but excited. We're sitting at the table and her older cousin says, "Glad you brought someone new this time. You always had a thing for Tyler, but this guy seems decent." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Later that night, I asked her who Tyler was. She got quiet. Turns out Tyler was her best friend growing up. She confessed she had loved him for years, but he never made a move. So eventually, she gave up and started dating me. But here's the kicker. Tyler had just gotten divorced 2 weeks ago, and suddenly, my girlfriend was being distant, cold, always on her phone. One night, I checked her messages. Not proud of it, but I knew. She had texted Tyler, "If you're serious, I'll leave him." I left her first because I was never the one. Just the consolation prize while she waited for a maybe. Story 6. I dated Sarah for a year and a half. She was sweet, attentive, always talked about our future together. Kids, careers, houses. I really thought she was it. Then one night we were lying in bed and she fell asleep with her phone in her hand. I wasn't snooping, but the screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Luke. What got me was the message preview. "I'm scared I'll hurt him, but I still think about you every day." I froze. I unlocked the phone. There was a full thread. Months of messages. It wasn't physical. They hadn't met up. But it was emotional, deep, intimate. Sarah had loved Luke since before me. He was the ex who ghosted her years ago. And when I pieced the timeline together, I realized she only gave me a chance after Luke disappeared on her. And now he was back. She said I was everything she needed, but Luke was everything she wanted. That line still echoes in my head. Story 7. Back in college, I had a huge crush on this girl, Megan. She was way out of my league, but somehow we clicked. Friends first, then more. We dated for 6 months, and it felt like a dream. Then came our senior formal. I bought a suit, got her flowers. But when I picked her up, she looked distant, weirdly quiet. Halfway through the night, her best friend pulled me aside. She was drunk, emotional, and said, "You're a great guy. I just hate that she's using you to get over Brandon." Brandon, her ex, the guy who cheated on her. Later that night, she confirmed it. Said she wanted to love me, was trying to, but it just wasn't there. I wasn't her plan A. I was her bandage. I left early, walked 3 miles back to my dorm, and never talked to her again. Story 8. He proposed to me under the northern lights during our vacation in Iceland. It was a fairy tale. I cried. Said yes. It felt like everything was finally right in my world. Then a month later, I found a ring box hidden in the back of his closet. A completely different ring. I asked him about it. He turned pale. Then he admitted he had planned to propose to his ex Lauren a year early. Bought the ring, rehearsed the speech, everything. But she had ended things before he got the chance. He kept the ring. Couldn't bring himself to return. And then came me. He said he grew to love, said I restored his faith. But now I'll never forget. That box in his closet was meant for someone else. And I was just the woman who showed up when she walked out. I ended the engagement. I didn't want to wear the ring he had bought for someone else, or carry the heart he had already given away. Story 9. My girlfriend of 2 years introduced me to her coworkers at their office Christmas party. One of them, a woman named Jessica, looked surprised and said, "Wait, you're Nate? I thought you guys broke up months ago." I was confused, laughed it off, but it didn't sit right with me. That night, I asked her about it. She came clean. There was another guy, Mike, a coworker she had been emotionally involved with for a while. When we hit a rough patch, she had told her friends we were basically done and started seeing where things could go with. When it didn't work out, she realized she still wanted, so I was the fallback, the safety net, the version she went back to when her new toy didn't work out. I left her that night. She called me dramatic, said I blew things out of proportion, but I knew the truth. Story 10. I married. We had a daughter, built a whole life together, and I still wasn't her first choice. You'd think that by the time you walk down the aisle, you'd be past the old heartbreaks. But some people never really let go of the ones that got away. We were going through some boxes in the garage one day, looking for baby stuff. She found an old photo album and smiled. "That was my trip to Napa with Daniel," she said. Daniel was her college boyfriend. I'd heard about him, but she always downplayed it. What she didn't know was that buried in the album was a letter. I picked it up by accident. It wasn't dated, but it was clearly meant for him, not me. It said, "If you ever come back for me, I'll drop everything. I mean it." I didn't say anything, but something inside me broke, because I realized she might never love me the way she loved him. And if he showed up tomorrow, I might be the thing she'd leave behind. Story 11. He broke up with me over coffee. Calm. Casual. Said, "It's not you, it's just, I don't feel that spark." I was hurt, but I accepted it. We'd been dating for 8 months. I really thought it was going somewhere, but maybe not for him. 2 weeks later, I found out through a mutual friend that he got back with his ex the same day he ended things with me. Turns out they had been texting for weeks behind my back. She told him she was ready to try again, and he broke up with me the next day. I wasn't dumped because we didn't work. I was just keeping his heart warm until the one he really wanted came back. Story 12. We met at work, grew close over time. He always said he wasn't looking for anything serious, so we kept it casual. But feelings grew, mine especially. After a year, I finally asked, "What are we doing? Are we ever going to be something more?" He looked me in the eyes and said, "Honestly, I'm still hoping it'll work out with Erica." Erica, the girl who dumped him 2 years ago and got engaged to someone else. "I'm with you because it helps the pain go away," he added, as if that made it better. I stared at him, stunned. I wasn't even plan B. I was emotional Tylenol. Story 13. I was with my boyfriend for 3 years. We lived together, had a joint bank account, talked about names for our future kids. One night, we had dinner with his old college buddies. They got drunk and started reminiscing. Someone joked, "Man, remember how obsessed you were with Jenna? Can't believe you ended up with Sarah." I laughed, assuming it was harmless teasing. But later that night, I asked him about it. And he said, "Honestly, if Jenna hadn't moved overseas, things probably would have gone differently." I said, "So I was the second choice?" And he said, "You were the available choice." I slept in the guest room that night and moved out the next day. Story 14. We were high school friends, and I always had a crush on her. She dated other people, I stayed in the background. We reconnected after college and things finally clicked. She told me I was the one who always cared. I thought that was romantic, until I found the notebook. It was her old journal. I didn't mean to read it, but when I saw my name, I got curious. One entry said, "I don't love Ben, but he's always there. I'm just tired of being alone." Another said, "If Matt ever called, I'd drop everything. But he won't. So Ben it is." I didn't confront her. I just ghosted, because I realized I was never the dream, just the default. Story 15. She and I dated all through college. I helped her get through med school, cooked for her, supported her, cheered her on through every exam. She graduated, landed a residency, and we moved to a new city together. I thought we were finally at the stage where we could get engaged. Then, I came home one night and found her sitting on the floor crying. She admitted she had reconnected with her college ex, Jason. He'd reached out, just to catch up. They met for coffee, talked for hours. Old feelings came flooding back. "I love you," she said, "but it's not the same." Jason was always the one that got away. I was the one who stayed. She packed up 2 days later and moved out. And the worst part? She didn't cheat. She didn't lie. She just waited, and the moment her plan A returned, she didn't hesitate. That's how I learned love isn't always about who's there. Sometimes it's about who shows up last. Story 16. It was supposed to be a fresh start. We both moved to a new city together after years of dating long distance. I left my job, my family, and everything I knew just to be with her. A few weeks into our new life, I noticed she'd become distant, always on her phone, staying out late, being vague about work events. One night, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. Curiosity got the best of me. The message said, "I still think about it. I don't care if she moved here." We had something real. It was from her ex. I confronted her. She cried and admitted she still wasn't over him, said she thought she could be, that moving in with me might finally make those feelings fade. I wasn't her new beginning. I was her distraction from someone she couldn't let go. Story 17. My boyfriend of 2 years took me to his sister's wedding. It was the first time I'd met most of his extended family. During the reception, his aunt pulled me aside and said, "We're so glad he moved on from Hannah. That girl broke his heart. You're a nice change of pace." A change of pace. Later that night, I asked him who Hannah was. He tried to play it off, just an ex from a long time ago. But the way he talked about her, it was like he was describing the sun, and I was a candle trying to shine in the same room. Eventually, he admitted that he proposed to Hannah, and she turned him down, said he never really healed from it. And that's when I knew. I was just the person who didn't say no. Story 18. We dated all through college, moved in together after graduation. Everything seemed perfect, until I found her old Tumblr. Yes, Tumblr. Buried under an old username, I found post after post about the one who got away, a guy named Tyler. Photos, quotes, poetic entries about how no one could make her feel the way he did. One post was dated 3 months into our relationship and read, "I don't think I'll ever love someone like Tyler again. But maybe this new guy can help me forget." That new guy was me. She didn't even deny it, said she meant well, and really did grow to love. But I wasn't love. I was healing. Story 19. My wife and I were together for 10 years. We had a house, a dog, and a son. I thought we were solid, stronger than ever. Then, one night, she got a call while we were watching TV. She walked into the other room to take it. Didn't think I'd hear, but I did. She said, "You can't do this to me. I gave you everything, and I stayed with him because you wouldn't commit." I sat there frozen. She came back in like nothing happened. I didn't say a word for days. Just watched, listened. Eventually, I asked her if she was still in love with someone else. She didn't say no. And I realized, after a decade of loyalty and love, I was the second best choice she had convinced herself to settle for. I filed for divorce a week later. Story 20. He was my best friend before we became something more. Years of laughter, heartbreaks, supporting each other through everything. When he kissed me for the first time, I felt like all the stars aligned. We dated for nearly a year. Then, out of nowhere, he said he needed space, that he was confused. I respected it. But 2 months later, I saw a photo on social media. Him, arm around a girl I didn't recognize, smiling, happy. That girl was his ex, the one he never quite got over. And the truth came out in pieces. He had dated me hoping he could move on, hoping I'd fill that hole. But when she came back, he left me like I was just holding her place. Story 21. We started dating in our late 20s. Everything about him felt safe, kind, and solid. We talked about marriage. We even started looking at houses. Then one day, I found a note tucked into a drawer in his desk. It looked old, folded, worn out. It was addressed to Ellie. It wasn't from me. I'm not Ellie. It was a letter he wrote to her years ago and never sent. In it, he said, no matter who I end up with, I'll always be waiting. I confronted him. He admitted that she was his first love, and he never really got over her. But she didn't want a relationship, said they were better as friends. I asked, so what am I? And he said, you're the one who chose me back. That sentence broke something in me. Because love shouldn't be a consolation prize. Story 22. I was pregnant with our first child when I found out. He was at work. I was folding laundry and accidentally knocked his laptop off the bed. It slid open, and I saw an email thread between him and a woman named Chelsea. He had never mentioned a Chelsea. The emails were intimate, emotional, not graphic, but worse, in a way. They talked about how different life would have been if things had worked out, and how he hoped he made the right choice. She had ended it with him years ago. Now she was back in the picture, married, but still wondering what if, and he wasn't shutting it down. When I confronted him, he broke down, said he never acted on it. But emotionally, he had always held on to her, even as we planned a family, even as I carried his child. Story 23. We dated for 4 years, lived together for 2. Everyone called us the perfect couple. Then he got a job offer out of state. I offered to move with him. He said he needed time to think about it. Weeks went by. He was distant, cold. Finally, he broke up with me, saying it wasn't fair to drag me into uncertainty. I was heartbroken. 3 months later, I saw a photo of him and his ex on a beach. Engaged. He didn't move for the job. He moved for her. I was the placeholder until she wanted him again. And the worst part? He didn't even have the guts to tell me the truth. I found out from a mutual friend. Story 24. She and I had been dating for about a year. Things were moving fast. Weekend trips, meeting each other's families, even talking about moving in together. One night, we were having dinner with her parents when her dad asked, so, is Brian still in the picture? I blinked. She looked mortified. Her mom shot her dad a look like, shut up. After an awkward silence, I asked, who's Brian? Turns out, Brian was the guy she dated before me. The guy her parents thought she would end up marrying. The guy she had been on a break with when we started dating. They hadn't broken up. They'd paused. She got with me during that pause. And when he didn't come back around, I became the permanent substitute. She tried to apologize. Said she loved me now. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if Brian had come knocking, I would have been out the door without a second thought. Story 25. He and I were friends since childhood, always inseparable. When we finally started dating in our early 20s, it felt like the natural evolution of something long overdue. I loved him with everything I had. Then, during a trip to his hometown, we went to a bar where he used to hang out. His old friends were excited to see him. One of them drunkenly said, man, I thought you'd be with Cassie forever. I laughed it off. Later, in the car, I asked about her. He went quiet, then said, Cassie was the first girl I ever loved. She broke my heart. I asked if he was over. He didn't answer. That silence said everything. I wasn't his forever. Just the version of forever that didn't leave him behind. Story 26. He called me his person, said I was his piece. We dated for almost 2 years, and I really thought this was the love people write books about. Then one night we were watching TV, and he casually said, I always thought I'd end up with Amanda. I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Amanda was his childhood best friend. He said, she's married now, and I respect that. But yeah, she was the one I pictured. I sat there, stunned, while he kept watching the show like nothing happened. He didn't even realize what he said had gutted, because he didn't think of me as a second choice. He thought I knew that already. Story 27. She and I got together after she went through a messy breakup. I was the friend she leaned on, the one who brought her ice, listened to hours of crying, told her she deserved better. One day she kissed me, said she was ready to move on. I was hesitant but hoped. For almost a year, we were a couple. Then I saw her phone light up while she was in the shower. The message said, I still think about us. Do you? It was from her ex. She came clean, said she had never stopped loving him, but didn't want to be alone. I was the safety, the emotional crutch until he came back around. They're married now. I still wonder if she ever loved me or just hated being alone more than she hated not having him. Story 28. We were on a break, but still talking, still texting, still us. At least, I thought we were. Then I saw a photo of her on social media, hand in hand with a guy I didn't recognize, smiling, glowing. She had moved on. I messaged her, confused, and she replied, You were always the safe choice. But I needed to know if I could feel fireworks again. Those words broke something. I was the safe harbor. The one she came back to when she got hurt, but never the storm she wanted to chase. Turns out, she didn't want peace. She wanted passion, even if it came from someone else. Story 29. She used to talk about him like he was a myth. Her what if, her one that got away. I didn't mind at first, it was in the past. Or so I thought. Then, one night at dinner, she was unusually quiet. I asked what was wrong and she blurted out, "He messaged me. He's single now." I laughed nervously, asking what she planned to do. She said, "I don't know. I need time to think." Time to think. That's how I found out I was just a placeholder. She left 2 days later. No fight, no explanation. Just a goodbye text. "I'm sorry. I need to see if it was real." Guess I was never real enough for her to stay. Story 30. We dated for 3 years. Traveled together. Met each other's families. Talked about marriage. Then, one day, I got a message from a girl I didn't know. She said, "You don't know me, but I think we're dating the same guy." I thought it was a scam, until she sent screenshots. They'd been dating for 5 months. He told her I was his ex who was still living with him until her lease ended. I was the fallback. The steady one. The one who handled bills and groceries and made his life easier. She was the spark. The thrill. The one he wished he'd met first. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. He just said, "I didn't want to lose either of, so I made the choice for him." And I walked away. Story 31. We had been dating for just over a year when I overheard him talking to his mom on the phone. He didn't know I was home early from work. I stood in the hallway and heard him say, "Yeah, I still think about Claire. If she ever came back, I don't know what I'd do. But until then, things with Jenna are comfortable." Jenna. That's me. I didn't cry. I just listened as the man I loved referred to me as comfortable, a stand-in, for now. I left while he was still on the call. Never even gave him the chance to explain. I didn't need to hear another word. Story 32. I was with her for 2.5 years. Moved cities for her. Changed jobs for her. Thought I'd found someone worth building forever with. Then her sister got drunk at a family BBQ and said, "Honestly, I still can't believe she didn't wait for Tyler. I thought she was obsessed with that guy." I laughed awkwardly and asked, "Who's Tyler?" Her whole family went quiet. Later that night, I asked her directly. She admitted it. Tyler was her college boyfriend. He left the country for a job and told her to wait a year until he came back. She waited 6 months, gave up, and met me. Now Tyler was back in town. And she was distant. I asked her point blank, "If he wanted you tomorrow, would you go?" She didn't say no. That silence was louder than anything she could have said. Story 33. He and I had just gotten engaged. It was a beautiful proposal. Candles, music, the whole thing. I said yes through tears. 2 weeks later, we were out shopping when we bumped into a woman he used to work with. She congratulated us and said, "I'm so glad you finally got over Natalie." I raised an eyebrow, confused. On the way home, I asked who Natalie was. He got quiet. Turns out, Natalie was his ex-fiancée, the woman he had proposed to before me, a woman I had never even heard of. She turned him down, said she wasn't ready. And I was the second proposal. He swore it wasn't like that, swore he loved me more. But I couldn't help wondering, was I the do-over? The girl who said yes when the first didn't? Story 34. We'd just celebrated our 1-year anniversary when his laptop died, and he asked to use mine. Totally normal, until he forgot to log out of his email. I wasn't snooping, but a draft caught my eye. It was titled, "What I Would Have Said to Olivia." I opened it. It was a love letter. Pages poetic, raw. He wrote about how he missed her laugh, her smell, the way she challenged him. Said he settled for something good, but always dreamed of something great. He had written it a week before our anniversary, and he never deleted it. I didn't confront him. Just closed the laptop, packed my bag, and left. If someone else lives in your heart, I won't fight for space. Story 35. She had just broken up with her ex when we started talking. I told her I'd wait until she was ready. She said she didn't need time. She was done with him for good. We dove in fast. Laughed, traveled, shared everything. But I always felt like a ghost lingered in the background. She never said his name, but he was everywhere. In old photos. In songs she skipped. In that haunted look she got sometimes when I said, "I love you." One day, she forgot to log out of her Instagram. A DM was open. It said, "He's good to me, but he's not you." She sent it 2 days before our anniversary. That's when I realized I was the one she settled, the one who loved her while she waited for the one she still loved. Story 36. She and I had been dating for nearly a year when her ex passed away in a car accident. It was a tragedy, and I tried to be supportive. I gave her space, held her when she cried, let her grieve without judgment. But the grieving never stopped. One night, I came home and found her sobbing over a photo. She didn't notice me at first. Then I heard her whisper, "You were always the one." It wasn't meant for me. Later, I gently asked if she still loved him. She said, "I don't know if I ever stopped. I became the man who loved a woman whose heart belonged to someone no longer living. And I realized I was never plan A, just the only option left standing." Story 37. I met her through friends. We hit it off fast, dated for 6 months, and things got serious quick. She even introduced me to her parents, which I thought was a big deal, until her mom accidentally called me David at dinner. I laughed it off, but the tension in the room was immediate. Later, I asked her about it. She admitted that David was her ex, the one she'd planned a whole future with, the one she thought she'd marry. They broke up after he cheated, and she said she didn't want to be alone, so she tried to move on. With me, I was a distraction, a rebound with potential. But I could never be him, even if he was the one who broke her heart. Story 38. I found out when she got drunk at a New Year's party and started crying at midnight instead of kissing. She pulled away and said, "This was supposed to be him. This was our thing." I stood there stunned, surrounded by confetti and strangers cheering. She tried to walk it back the next day, said she was emotional, overwhelmed, but I knew. She didn't cry for us. She cried for the version of her life that didn't come true, with someone else. And I was just the one standing beside her when the clock ran. Story 39. We dated throughout college and into our late 20s. Everyone said we were the power couple. Then we hit a rough patch. Fights, distance, tension over careers. Out of nowhere, she suggested a break, said she needed to clear her head. During that time, I found out through a friend that she had gone on a weekend trip with her high school sweetheart. When I confronted her, she said, "I just needed to know if it was really over with him." It was a test where I never knew I was being compared. She said, "It made me realize I do want you." But I couldn't shake the fact that she had to test me to be sure, and that someone else was the yardstick. Story 40. He and I were planning a cross-country move together. New jobs, new place, a new beginning. 3 weeks before the move, I found a printed itinerary for a different flight, his to a different state with a one-way ticket. I asked him about it. He admitted it was for an interview in the city where his ex lived. He said, "I wanted to see if she still wanted me. If she didn't, then I'd come with you." I was the backup plan. The backup life. He wasn't choosing me. He was waiting to see if someone else, so I made the decision for him. And I left before he even got on the plane. Story 41. We had been dating for 3 years when his grandmother passed away. I went to the funeral to support him. After the service, we went back to his family's house. And while he was talking with relatives, I wandered into the den and noticed a photo board with pictures from his life. That's where I saw it. Photo after photo of him and another girl. Smiling, hugging, vacationing together. I wasn't in a single. His mom came over and quietly said, "That's Amanda. We all thought she'd be the one. She was around for a long time." Amanda. The girl I never knew existed. When I asked him about it later, he said, "It just didn't work out with her. But I got lucky with you." He didn't get lucky. He got left, and I was the next in line. Story 42. I didn't find out until the wedding. Not mine, hers. We dated for over a year and then she ghosted me. No closure, no explanation. Just disappeared. I moved on eventually. Or at least I tried. A year later, I got a wedding invitation from a mutual friend. I showed up and there she was, my ex, walking down the aisle in a white dress. And standing at the altar, a guy she had told me was just a friend. I left before they exchanged vows. Later that night, she texted me, "I'm sorry. I never stopped loving him. You were good to me, but it was always him." I didn't respond. Some truths don't need replies. Story 43. She and I shared everything. Lived together. Raised a dog together. Celebrated every little milestone. One day, we were going through an old box of hers. Photos, journals, birthday cards. And I found a torn-up piece of notebook paper folded inside a book. It was a pros and cons list. Pros of staying with Sam. Cons. Still love Chris. Will always love Chris. I stared at it for what felt like hours. She walked in, saw me holding the paper and froze. Didn't deny it. Didn't explain. Just said, "I hoped you'd never see that." But now I had. And suddenly, our life together felt like a carefully constructed lie. Story 44. I was the one who helped him recover after his messy breakup. Late night calls, pep talks, listening to him cry. Eventually, friendship turned into dating. I loved him, maybe too quickly. But one day, I caught him scrolling through her Instagram, just staring. He didn't realize I was watching. I asked, "Do you still love her?" He hesitated and said, "Not like I used to." That "not like I used to" echoed in my head for days. Then I found out through a friend that he had tried to reach out to her on her birthday, sent her a message, told her he missed what they had. He was waiting to see if she'd respond. And until she did, or didn't, I was just the standby. Story 45. He proposed on our 2-year anniversary. It was beautiful, unexpected, perfect. 3 months later, we were cleaning the apartment, and I accidentally knocked over a box from the top of his closet. Inside were letters. Letters to someone named Ash, dozens of them. Written after our first year together. I read one. "I wish things had worked out with us. I think about you every time I look at her. I pretend it's you beside me." I was shaking. When I confronted him, he swore it was just his way of getting closure. But I knew the truth. He was writing love letters to the woman he wished he'd ended up with, while planning a life with me. I gave the ring back the next morning. Story 46. We'd only been dating for a few months when he got into a motorcycle accident. I was the one who stayed at the hospital every night, updated his family, even helped manage his meds once he got home. One afternoon, I overheard him talking to his friend while I was cleaning the kitchen. He said, if this had happened a year ago, she would have come back. But now, all I've got is Ellie. I froze. I wasn't his miracle. I wasn't his anchor. I was just what was left. The one who stayed when the one he wanted never did. Story 47. I married her thinking we were soulmates. 10 years, 2 kids, a mortgage. I believed in us with every fiber of my being. Then I caught her crying in the bathroom with her phone in her hand. I knocked gently, concerned. She pulled it away like she'd been burned. Later that night, curiosity got the better, and while she was asleep, I checked her messages. She had messaged her ex, the one she always said was toxic. Just one line. "Do you ever wonder what could have been?" He never replied. But that didn't matter. What mattered was she did. And I realized I'd built a decade of love on the foundation of someone else's shadow. Story 48. She and I met during our final year of college. It was passionate, intense, and felt like fate. 6 months in, she got a job in another city. I was willing to do long distance, maybe even move. One night, while we were drinking wine and watching old videos on her laptop, she accidentally clicked the wrong folder. A video started playing, her and her ex, laughing, kissing, and at the end of it, she looked into the camera and said, "If I ever date anyone else, just know it's because I can't have you." She scrambled to close it. I just sat there, because in that moment, nothing she could say would change what I now knew. I wasn't her love story. I was her compromise. Story 49. He always told me I was the one who saw him clearly. Turns out I was just the one who didn't leave. After we broke up, I found a playlist he had made titled "If She Comes Back." Curious, I played it. It was filled with their songs. His ex, the one who ghosted him years ago. Every title was like a breadcrumb leading back to her. "Come Back Home," "Almost Lover," "If You Ever Change Your Mind." I realized that while I built our relationship on real moments and future dreams, he had built it on hope. Hope that one day she would show up at the door. And when she didn't, he settled. Story 50. She proposed the idea of getting married during a weekend trip. It caught me off guard, but I was touched. I said yes. A week later, we were having dinner with friends, and someone joked, "Didn't think you'd settle down unless Eric finally moved on." She laughed a little too hard. I asked her about it later. Turns out Eric was her on and off situationship for years. She waited for him, gave him endless chances. But when he got engaged, she finally let go. That's when she looked at, not out of love, out of exhaustion. I wasn't her dream. I was her resignation letter to the fantasy she never got to live. Story 51. He had a childhood best friend named Lily. They were never officially together, but you could tell there was history, unspoken, unresolved. When we started dating, he swore they were done. She'd moved away and I had nothing to worry about. Fast forward 2 years. We're sitting on the couch when he gets a text and immediately turns the phone face down. I asked who it was. He said, "Just Lily. She's back in town." He looked shaken, like a ghost had walked through him. That night, I saw him on the balcony, staring into the dark, whispering. He didn't know I was behind him when he said into the phone, "If you're serious this time, I'll end it with her." Her. Me. I walked away without a word. He never called to explain. Story 52. She used to talk about her ex like a phase. Young, reckless, and long gone. But the more time we spent together, the more I noticed how often his name came up. One day, I came home early to surprise her. The TV was off, lights low. She was on the couch, staring at a photo album of them. She looked up, startled. I asked what she was doing. She said, just remembering what it was like to be really in love. I stood there, heart thudding, waiting for her to correct herself. She never did. I packed my things and left that night. Because love shouldn't feel like an echo of someone else's memory. Story 53. I was a rebound, and I didn't realize it until I met her ex. We ran into him at a bar. He came over, said hi, was friendly. Too friendly. Like he still had a place. When he walked away, she looked shaken. Later that night, I asked if she still had feelings. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, he broke me. And you helped put the pieces back? It sounded sweet at first, until I realized I was never the person she wanted whole. Just the glue she used while mourning the version of herself that he shattered. Story 54. We were together for almost 4 years. Shared rent, vacations, family holidays. One night, I borrowed his tablet to look up a recipe. His messages were open. Group chat with his college friends. They were planning a reunion and one message from him read, I'll go if Mia's not there. If she is, I don't trust myself. I stared at the screen, stunned. Mia was the girl before me. The girl he said he'd grown out of. I confronted him. He admitted he still thought about her. Said he didn't want her anymore, but that some bonds never break. That was enough. Because I don't want to be chosen by default. I want to be chosen on purpose. Story 55. She was always fascinated by love stories. Rom-coms, fairy tales, long-lost soulmates. I used to joke that I wasn't her knight in shining armor, just the guy who showed up on time. She'd laugh, but I think she knew the truth. After we got engaged, I found a Pinterest board she forgot to make private. It was titled, If He Ever Comes Back. It was filled with wedding ideas, photos of her and her ex, quotes like, true love always finds its way. When I showed her, she froze. Didn't deny it. She just said, I guess a part of me never stopped hoping. And that was the part of her heart I could never reach. Story 56. We met at work. Started off slow, became inseparable. After a year, he invited me to his friend's wedding as his +1. That's where I met her, the bride. The second she saw us walk in, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Later, I found out from another guest that they had dated for years and broke up just a few months before we got together. He never told me. When I asked why, he said, it didn't seem important. She moved on. But he didn't. I noticed the way he watched her all night. Smiling but distant. Like something inside him was still hoping. I was his reality. She was still his dream. Story 57. She and I had just moved in together. Everything was going well. Except she kept a little wooden box on her nightstand. Locked. Never opened it in front of me. One day while cleaning, the key fell out from under the bed. I shouldn't have, but curiosity got the better. Inside were notes. Dozens of them. All from the same guy. Romantic letters, poems, photos of them together. All labeled and dated before and during our relationship. The most recent note said, I'll wait for you. Just say the word. I confronted her. She broke down crying, said she hadn't seen him in over a year but couldn't let go. I wasn't her partner. I was her emotional detour. Story 58. We dated through college. When he got accepted into a grad program out of state, I offered to move with him. He told me no, that it was his time to figure things out, and we should see other people. I was devastated but agreed. A few months later, I saw a tagged photo of him with a girl, holding hands, kissing. I messaged him. He replied, I didn't want to hurt you. I had to see if it could work with her. She's the one I always wondered about. She was his classmate, the one he talked about like she was just a friend. I wasn't the chapter he wanted to begin. I was the page he needed to turn to get there. Story 59. We'd been together nearly 5 years. Everyone kept asking when we'd get engaged. I thought he was just waiting for the right time. Then one day, while looking through his old emails for a receipt, I stumbled on a folder named The Life That Could Have Been. It was filled with drafted messages, unsent letters to his ex, photos, even wedding venue screenshots, dated a few months before we met. One draft said, if you ever change your mind, I'll leave everything behind for you. I asked him about it. He said it was just a fantasy, a place to grieve what never was. But what about me? Was I just the consolation prize in a life he never truly wanted? Story 60. She once told me that I made her feel calm. I thought that was a compliment, but later, I realized it was code for safe. Not exciting, not passionate, just safe. She had a journal she left open one morning. Inside was an entry that read, I miss the fire I had with Jake, but maybe calm is what I need now. Jake was her ex, the one she never talked about much except to say it ended badly. Turns out, she didn't choose me because she loved. She chose me because he broke her. I was never her want. I was her recovery. Story 61. We were together for a year and a half. Stable, happy, no drama. I thought we were growing into something real. Then she got a wedding invitation. I noticed her hands trembling as she opened. It was from her ex. They were engaged once, years before me. She swore it was ancient history. Later that night, I found her in the kitchen holding the invite like it had broken her. She whispered, I really thought it was supposed to be me next to him. Not, I'm happy for, not glad we moved on. Just pain. Regret. I realized then, I was never the happy ending. I was the recovery chapter. Story 62. She was my best friend for years before we started dating. I thought that meant we had a solid foundation. Then one night, after a fight, she said, you were never supposed to be this. I didn't understand. She continued, you were the one who was there. That's not the same as being the one. That sentence gutted me. I wasn't chosen. I was convenient. We stayed together for a few more months, but it always lingered. The knowledge that she didn't fall in love with me. She settled with me. There's no future in being someone's second best. Story 63. My boyfriend was close with his ex. A little too close. He always said they were just friends now, that they had history, but nothing romantic remained. One day, I saw a note in his coat pocket. Folded, small, faded. It was from her. If you ever change your mind, I'll be waiting. Love always, M. Dated 3 weeks before our anniversary. I confronted him. He swore he never responded, said he didn't even remember keeping it. But he kept it. You don't hold on to a future you don't secretly want. Story 64. We were planning our first trip together. Europe, backpacking, the dream. She was excited, or at least she pretended to be. A few nights before we were set to fly out, I caught her on the phone whispering, I'm going away with him. We just need time to figure things out. I confronted her right then and there. She burst into tears and admitted everything. Her ex had reached out, said he regretted leaving and asked her to run away with him. She said yes, was going to cancel our trip the day before. I wasn't her plan B. I was her plan until... Story 65. He and I were in our 30s. At that point where friends are getting married, having kids, buying houses. We'd been dating 2 years and I was expecting a proposal. Then one night, I got a text from his phone. But it wasn't him. It was his sister. She'd found his journal while helping him pack for a weekend trip and thought I deserved to see it. In it, he wrote, I keep waiting to feel what I felt with Anna, but maybe this is good enough. Maybe love doesn't come twice. Anna, the girl he never got over. I didn't respond to his texts. Didn't wait for the ring. Because good enough isn't love. It's settling with a smile. Story 66. She and I started dating after working on a theater production together. There was chemistry, laughter, late-night talks. I thought it was something special. One night, we were going through her old photo albums. She smiled at a picture of her and a guy with his arm around her and said, that was Aaron. He was the one who got away. She laughed. But then her smile faded. He wanted different things. But if he asked me to drop everything today, I probably would. She said it like it was just a thought, a joke. But it didn't feel like. I realized I wasn't her present. I was her plan to cope with a future she still hoped might come back. Story 67. We were out with her friends and one of them got drunk and loud. You know, she said, we all thought you were just a phase. Something to get her through the Matt breakup. I laughed awkwardly, but I looked at my girlfriend. She didn't deny it. Later in the car, I asked what that was about. She said, I was broken. You made me feel safe. I didn't expect it to last this long. Didn't expect? That stung. Because I expected everything. A life, a future, a forever. She just expected me to patch her up. And I did. Until I couldn't anymore. Story 68. He used to tell me I made life feel normal again. I thought that was a compliment. Until I realized what he meant. He had just gotten out of a long, toxic relationship when we met. I helped him rebuild. Got him into therapy. Helped him breathe again. Then, almost 2 years in, he said, I don't feel passion. Just peace. I asked what was wrong with peace. He said, nothing. But it's not love. That's when I understood. I wasn't his happy ending. I was his recovery. A quiet place to rest before chasing chaos again. Story 69. He proposed at my favorite park. I said yes, crying. A month later, I got an anonymous email from someone with no subject. Inside was one screenshot. It was a message from him to someone named Becca. I'm engaged now. I wish it were you. No explanation. No context. Just that. When I showed him, he broke down and admitted he'd written it a week after our engagement. Becca had been the girl he loved in college. She ghosted him. And I was the person he convinced himself was good enough. I gave the ring back. Not because of the message, but because of the fact that he still meant it. Story 70. We had been dating for about a year when I was invited to her cousin's wedding. I thought meeting extended family was a big step. At the reception, I was getting drinks when her aunt came up to me and said, "I'm so glad she gave someone else a chance." We were all tired of hearing about Jason. I smiled politely, but my stomach dropped. Later that night, I asked who Jason was. She froze, said, "He was the guy I thought I'd marry, but he moved on." So I moved forward, with me. Not because she healed, but because she got tired of waiting. And I was available.